I wanted to first talk about, of course, the just massive airstrikes that Israel is conducting right now in Lebanon. There were reports that there were about 80 airstrikes in a 30-minute period. There's so many different reports about how many people have been killed, but women, children, so many have been killed. Some are saying 300, some are saying between 100 and 300. But it is a massive campaign. Of course, Hezbollah is striking deeper and deeper into so-called Israeli territory as well in retaliation. But this follows up a number of escalations, including the horrific device attack, as it's being called by some, pagers and walkie-talkies and phones, even solar panels going off in Lebanon. I wanted to start with you, Ghadi. Could you talk about the state of the resistance right now? I want to start from that perspective, because there have been some who are watching this who are feeling quite, I think, deflated. But there's also an element, too, where Israel has these very particular objectives, very aggressive objectives, leading what seems to be to an all-out war in Lebanon. Could you talk about the state of the resistance, given the fact that you have these so-called stated objectives, as well as just the devastation that we've seen in recent days?
Hello, Danny. Hello, Lowkey. It's such an honor to be speaking with you. Let me start with, because the narrative is very important when reciting and when talking about the situation and the resistance. Let me start by re-identifying this. When you have so little, you have so little to lose. When you have so much, you have a lot to lose. I know there has been strikes in Lebanon. Today was a very hard day for the Lebanese people. Thousands of people were displaced, maybe tens of thousands. Some are still stuck on the streets right now on the road. Some were attacked by Israel when they were moving on the safe roads. Israel does these kinds of war crimes. This is a kind of war, psychological and actual war on people, to intimidate the Lebanese people, to tell them that the big war is here. We have to all lose our faith in our society. But on the other hand, we're looking at some people. Most of these people who are displaced today have been displaced from South Lebanon before. In the same day, Lebanon was able to increase the amount of displaced Israeli settlers by hundreds of thousands, and to increase geographically the places that are being hit by the Hezbollah rockets. Now we're speaking about southern Haifa. When we talk about the Israelis and their objectives, regardless of their war and their propaganda, and taking Netanyahu to come and speak out audaciously to the Lebanese people that he's slaughtering, leave that propaganda aside and look at the actual objectives that the Israelis put from these attacks on Lebanon. Their target was to return the settlers back to the northern areas, to northern occupied Palestine. Well, not only they did not deter Hezbollah's rockets, they dragged on new, fresh round of rockets. Fadi 1, Fadi 2 hit inside the David Air Base, David Ramat Air Base, and we could all see the actual losses that Israelis suffered. And actually, another 300,000 Israelis were displaced. So Israel and Netanyahu, they are not really actually hitting their targets. This is all just a propaganda to cover up their failures. 1 year into genocide in Gaza, they still did not stop Gaza from firing rockets at Tel Aviv. 1 year into genocide in Gaza, they were able to carry on everyday war crimes. Every day they commit a new war crime, regardless if the ICJ rules every day or not. And when talking about Lebanon, I just want to tell you about, going back to the first point of your question, what is the state of the resistance? If only we could look at the resistance in matter of facts, in the videos and in all the army shows and in all the actual battles in the past decades, we know that Hezbollah has a lot of rockets that still did not enter the battlefield. This is also reported by the Israeli media as well, and Israeli analysts. They know that Hezbollah did not really actually start. But when you actually start to hit below the belt, you are telling Hezbollah that there are no red lines anymore. And I think and I expect that the resistance in Lebanon, just like minutes after fire was all around South Lebanon, rockets were fired from South Lebanon to northern occupied Palestine. And I think this is going to go on like that, tit for tat. The only difference is that the Lebanese people are resilient enough, they are experienced enough, they are that we know exactly who our enemy is, and we've seen that. But the Israelis do not know the new, fresh, updated Lebanese 2024 version. They're gonna meet it soon, though.
Yeah, Lowkey, you want to come in?
Well, firstly, I would like to begin by sending my salutations to Ghadi, to the other journalists who are performing an essential service to all of humanity. And more importantly, a salutation to the brave, powerful, steadfast, victorious people of Lebanon who drove Israel out in 2006 and who have overcome the US project for the region, which was, let's not forget, based on completely deteriorating Lebanon's ability to defend itself and to prevent Israel. Every group around the world that has stood with the Palestinians since October 7th has had a price exacted from them. And today, it is because of South Lebanon that you have had, for the first time in the history of the settler colony of Israel, what they call al-Hijra al-Aksiyya, the opposite migration, the phenomena of Israeli settlers leaving the settler entity. It is because of South Lebanon that you have had the economic collapse of the settler society. And it is because of South Lebanon that you have hundreds of thousands of settlers driven from the north of Palestine. Now, Israel seems to take great delight in sending text messages to the phones of those in the south of Lebanon. But in this war, you have seen text messages sent to the phones of Israelis anywhere near the north of Palestine, also informing them of the danger headed their way. What all of this is the death spasms of a dying idea. And that idea is that European colonial settlers can impose their will on populations with histories and civilizations of thousands of years, that they can impose a new synthetic reality upon these populations, that they can dominate them, that they can drive them to different places at their will at the point of a gun. But what you now see in the region is a clear line drawn between the axis of resistance and the axis of assistance. Now, the people across the region have a choice. They've been lied to for decades. They've had the most sophisticated psychological warfare aimed at them by the United States, Israel, Britain, Germany, and Canada have also played bit roles in this. They have pumped the media in these societies full of the idea that they have something to fear from the only people in the region who are willing to fight and die for the protection of it. The mist is clearing and the truth has been demystified by these circumstances. Why is it today that you have those in the axis of assistance, the Jordanian government shooting down drones coming from Iraq to aid those in Lebanon and those in Gaza? Why is it when you have some of the poorest people in the world in Yemen who have themselves endured almost a decade of a genocidal war, which has seen the targeting of all manner of civilian infrastructure rise like a phoenix from the embers of that war to defend their brothers and sisters in Gaza, when that was taken, that step was taken to say the Red Sea is a red line, you will not pass, what happened? A land bridge was established between the UAE, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia in order to keep providing fuel, providing food, vegetables, providing all manner of assistance to the Zionist enemy. And the other question marks that have to be brought about here, when you look at the assassinations that Israel has carried out across the last few days, there are individuals there that the United States have long-term revenge with. We cannot understand the assassination of Fuad Shukr or Ibrahim Aqil as simply an Israeli move. The United States would have been involved in an intimate way. In addition to that, when an Israeli jet today had finished striking Lebanon and was fleeing from the area, where did it carry out an emergency landing? In Cyprus. Was that emergency landing on the British airbase of Akrotiri in Cyprus? It has been said before by senior Israeli military figures that Akrotiri base in Cyprus will be the heartbeat of any regional war which takes place. This is not simply Israel acting against Lebanon. This is the collective West acting against the global South. It is time for those in the global South who really have power, who at the beginning of the war on Gaza, the genocide on Gaza, took fairly honorable positions. But it seems that Israel's bullying of them is drawing them back into a deadly dance and a Faustian pact with Israel. And we say to those powers of the global South, you are the future, we respect you, but we want you to be stronger in protecting our people in Gaza and protecting our people in Lebanon. The choice is clear now for people in the region. For so long, we've said Gaza has been failed, hukumatan wa sha'ban. But now is the time where sha'ban, there needs to be a difference. On the people-to-people level, you need more efforts to destabilize and disrupt that land bridge that runs into the Zionist entity. You need more done to destabilize the relations between Egypt and Israel. It is simply untenable and unsustainable. In the future and the years and the decades to come, people will look back on what they did during this period as definitive of who they are. And I would say that in terms of our role in this country, Palestine Action will escalate operations against Israeli arms factories in this country in line with what Israel is attempting to do in Lebanon. We have 16 political prisoners in UK jails today, and we are willing to go by the hundred and by the thousands more of us into the prisons in this country if that means we lessen the load on Gaza and Lebanon. And you have to remember that for all of these days of this genocide in Gaza, what Lebanon has tried to do is lighten the load on Gaza. And today the load is lightened. It's over 300 in Lebanon today, and it's less in Gaza than it was yesterday. The region is rising and asserting its sovereignty in a way never, ever before. So while this is a moment of great pain, of great suffering, it's also a moment of great hope.
Yeah, Ghadi, I want to bring you back in to talk about that sacrifice. I've heard you on other programs talk about this great sacrifice. And, you know, even the New York Times are referencing 2006, because according to even Western media, what Israel is doing right now, according to some numbers, is saying that it's almost a quarter of what was conducted in that brutal genocidal war during that period. So could you talk about the sacrifice and how even just like Lebanese people and the resistance have been responding even beyond the military side, the armed resistance side?
Well, if we go back, I want first of all, I want to thank Lowkey for the perspective he took on in talking about the region, and I want to come from there. The problem in this whole region is that the colonial powers drew these maps, and since they formed these new smaller nations in the sense of divide and conquer, but they were formed in a way to make the people and the region weaker so that a Zionist entity can come and fix itself. But Lebanon is not only in a war of solidarity with Gaza. Lebanon has direct war and conflict with the Israeli presence at the borders. Every day there are clashes. Every day the Israeli planes cross our skies, and the assassination list has always been there. Whether it's in Syria or carried out in Lebanon. I just want to give for context here, Hassan al-La'is, a very great technological mind of Hezbollah, was assassinated in Beirut, and there was no war by the Mossad, by the Israelis. This is why when you go back to speaking about the assassination of Abdul Qadir, which is like Ibrahim Faqih, or Shukr, or before that Imad Mughni, or Mustafa Badruddin, you are speaking about men that were on the list that were hunted by the Americans and the Israelis for 40 years, since the 80s. So they have been martyred for 40 years. They have succeeded in tricking the Americans and surviving that list for 40 years, during which they have built a structured resistance, a structured organization, and they manufactured and designed tens of men like them. The problem with the people who speak about the resistance in Lebanon is that they are blinded by the idea that the white man always wins, that the F-35 always wins, that the Israelis and the Zionists and the people with the money always win. But in 2006, we have a precedent as Lebanese people where the Merkava did not win, where the planes did not actually win, where the Israelis did not follow any objective, and where we actually succeeded in a prisoner swap operation. So whatever they use, whether it's 1/4 of the 2006 war or not, since 2006 and until today, Lebanese Hezbollah as an organization has grown in its skills, has grown in its numbers, has grown in its expertise, and the axis of resistance is tremendous. I am so proud of Lebanon today. I'm so proud of the Lebanese people and the Lebanese solidarity. I'm so proud that me, as a person, I want to tell you a personal experience, Danny and Karim. In 2006, I was 17 years old. I just finished high school, and the war broke out. It took us around 10 years into war to be able to communicate with a family that lived in southern suburb of Beirut, to open our home in northern Lebanon, to be able to aid them to find a safer place. Today, it took me exactly 1 hour to do so. And it took that people exactly 30 minutes to evacuate. We are so ready for this. This war, if it's not actually in the headlines and in the news, we live it every day in our homes. There is no day that we are not oppressed, or our land is not really taken, or you have some settlers trying to humiliate our people. So it is not peace over here. The price and the sacrifice is big, yes, but for the first time in history, going back to the region, you see a Syrian manufactured rocket built and fired by a Lebanese hand at a Palestinian occupied state. And simultaneously, you see an Iraqi rocket flying over Jordan, Syria, and getting into occupied Palestine. This is something that has never happened before, and this makes the new frame of the new war. The Israelis call it the Lebanon War number 3. We prefer the designation that the Palestinians took. It is the flood. And I think the people of this region have been ready enough for the past 77 years of genocide and Holocaust. This is not a fight we chose. It is a fight of existence for us.
Yeah, indeed. And I think oftentimes, even when independent analysts are covering war and covering resistance, the human factor, the people factor, the fact that this is, as you said, Ghadi, it really is a story of a people oppressed, fighting back, and that fight back has become exponentially more powerful. Thank you for tuning in to my latest video. I appreciate all of your support. This channel, however, needs your help. I am seeking to make this channel more sustainable in the long term and upgrade necessary equipment to ensure that this work continues onward and makes progress to give you all of the geopolitical analysis that you all deserve. For that reason, I'm asking you to become a member of my Patreon community at patreon.com/DannyDhaiphong. You can find that link in the video description or in the pinned comment below. For whatever amount you choose to give, just know you are supporting independent media that you can't find anywhere else. Thank you so much, and I look forward to the next video.